Imposter syndrome. It's a very common thing. It's mentioned a lot in business owner circles and a lot in career circles as well. It's where there's this universal fraud machinery going on that every person who starts a business or starts something new, they've felt this like the devil on the shoulder whispering, "Who the hell do you think you are?" It's described as a low hum of dread. You're not listening, like literally listening to a low hum. It's more like that there's like this underlying kind of dark cloud over everything. And for some of us, it's been almost a sense that today is probably the day we're going to get caught out and we're not going to be able to live up to the expectations that people have of us. It's quite debilitating. It's like waiting for someone to tap you on the shoulder and say, "You don't belong here. It's time for you to leave." It is overwhelming sometimes. Most of us have, find our way through it and over it, but that's usually through a process of confidence. That said, though, I still have moments, even all these decades later, that I still feel like the devil's on my shoulder saying that stuff. So, really, how is it so pervasive when we are high achievers? Because you wouldn't be doing this stuff. You wouldn't be on this if you weren't a high achiever, someone who wants to achieve something greater than just yourself. It's because this little psychological trick in your brain is absolutely immune to everything you've done good. It doesn't matter how many times you've been awarded, the amount of revenue you've made, the amount of cars in the garage, the house you're living in, or whatever the successes have been. None of it can silence that doubt. It's not convinced by what you've done. It doesn't care how many wins are on your wall or how many trophies are on the shelf. It still stays present. Now, for me, it's never gone away, but it is a lot quieter than it used to be, and it doesn't come up anywhere near as much. So I'm not going to say this is something which you can absolutely cure with 100%, like all those neurolinguistic programming hypnotherapist types would have you believe. You can't trick your way out of this. What you can do is just work through it. You think you're the only one who feels like this, and you're absolutely not. And this is the really nasty part of all this. It makes you feel like you are uniquely fraudulent. You are uniquely incompetent in a world of people who are actually feeling exactly the same. Like I'm looking out over a cityscape of Melbourne here with its giant skyscrapers full of people working away, and they're all feeling the same thing. The people who don't are kind of narcissistic, and that's the whole thing, that we think that it's completely unhealthy to have this, but it's actually a very much a survival mechanism. It's built into all of us. We're living in unnatural times that our bodies and brains were not built for. So we find ways of coping, and we've developed this imposter syndrome as a way to do it, particularly in the West. I'd like to introduce you though to this idea of a mirror mask. This is a name. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's exorbitant. It's a very, very tiring, calorie intensive, time intensive way of maintaining this version of you that you think the world wants to see. It's that fake mask. And people, strangely enough, they see straight through it. Like it doesn't fool anyone. The only person that fools is yourself. Doesn't fool anyone else. You would know that you've probably had mothers or aunties or friends or even your partner kind of come to you and say, "What are you doing? Like this isn't you. This is not who you are." Because it fools nobody. But we maintain it with all the caloric intake and all the time and attention and distraction that it causes. The problem is that the more energy that we spend managing this mask or this perception, it takes away the time and the effort and the energy we need to build our best work. It's a very, very expensive mask. It does not help us in any way, shape, or form, but we are convinced we have to make sure it's maintained. And sometimes that mask looks a bit different for everybody. Some people, it's 100% competence. Other people, it's wealth signaling or virtue signaling, attaching themselves to causes they don't truly believe in because they think, well, that's what people expect of me. Things like that. So it's where you are spending a lot of time and energy trying to maintain a version of yourself that nobody asked for, nobody said they wanted, and nobody actually believes. The mask fools no one. It may trick you for a while, but even then it starts to slip after a while, where the pain of keeping that mask on is far more expensive than the pain of getting rid of it and facing the truth. Our performance is absolutely see-through. People do not respond to our polish and our performance and our practice. They respond to our presence. The human endocrine system is based around a lot of hormones, a lot of peptides, a lot of chemicals flowing within us and between us as well. And a lot of those chemical flows between us happen, very, very invisibly. They're stimulated from one person to the next. And oxytocin is one of those really, really, really well-known ones where, for instance, you look at someone, you like them, you smile, a little bit of oxytocin and dopamine, a dopamine flash goes, oxytocin is released, you feel connected to that person. We get it with attraction. We get it with people who, share a little of themselves, and we share a little of ourselves between mothers and children, for fathers and their sons and daughters as well. People just don't respond to the polish because there is a lack of that oxytocin. You've seen it at 100 different webinars and workshops, and like conferences are full of these people who are just absolutely soulless. They are basically reading from an internal script over and over and over and over. And this is what they're paid for. They've achieved nothing else in life other than being a professional speaker. And the harder they perform at this, the harder they go at making it as smooth as possible, the further they're pushing their audience away from them because it's not genuine. It doesn't connect. There is no oxytocin flowing, and therefore there's no way to learn. You're not going to learn a thing from these people. They are absolute frauds and performance artists masquerading as professional speakers. And there's entire industries and associations and certifications around the professional speaker. But the professional speaker is becoming less and less trusted for simply the reason is that they're spending all their time traveling around speaking. They're not actually practicing anything. They're not actually doing anything. They're doing, entrepreneurship webinars and performances at conferences, but they're not actually doing any entrepreneurship apart from managing their own costs and expenses in zero. So we see through this performance. We know it's fake. And that's why conferences are in so much trouble because people are just going, stop giving me this rubbish from these people who have no idea what I'm going through, yet seem to pretend that they do. Perception management is very expensive. Every calorie, like I've said, that you spend trying to keep that mask on is a calorie not used for actually carrying out your work, your actual impact, your real purpose for being here, as opposed to this trap that you put yourself into. And experienced pros get really stuck in this because being old, being experienced, having life experiences does not protect you from this mask. In fact, all those things will make it worse because of a couple of things, right? The sideline trap. And this is where experienced professionals play small to avoid being exposed for the absolute fraud that they are. Or there's this performance anxiety, which, focuses on looking competent, having the suit, having the hair, having the right look and feel about it. That all those things that you're so concerned about that stop you being present. And then the isolation, which is the mask doesn't protect you. All it does is cut you off from people because you're so terrified that someone will see through you. So the sideline trap is like this idea that the more you know, the more you fear being caught about not knowing everything. There's a very simple cure for this one little part, which is just simply that you say, I do not know, but I'll find out in the break for you. If you're up speaking, if you're presenting people and you don't know the answer, yes, being caught out for not knowing the answer isn't such a bad thing. You just have to admit it. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head, but wait until we get off stage here and I'll be able to go and find that for you. But what happens is we hold back, we wait, and we watch instead of leading. We won't step on the stage. We won't go forward and do that presentation or pitch. Playing small in order to avoid being exposed is not humility, it's false humility. It's you trying to protect your fakery dressed up as a form of being careful, caution, right? So it's not actually effective because it stops you from connecting with people. It stops you from moving forward. And it's just you trying to protect yourself from something that's not actually out there to get you. When you focus on looking good, you're not present, you're not there. And again, I see this with so many speakers in conferences. When they're not present in who the people are in front of them, or if you go into a pitch meeting, for instance, or you go into some kind of environment where you're delivering a workshop, the person isn't present because they're constantly obsessive about everything around, flicking their hair, all these little things, pulling down their shirt. God, I've done that many, many times. The little things that make them want to look good and it pulls their attention inside, which creates anxiety rather than putting the attention out there to the audience in front of them. It's not the audience that a speaker is afraid of. It's actually what's going on inside you, that anxiety, because you're thinking of yourself, not them. And that's something about, doing things for service, and we'll cover that in just a moment. So this mask isn't protecting you at all. It just isolates you from people. It cuts you off. It doesn't connect with anyone. It impresses people for 5 minutes, and then you are forgettable. People just forget about you. That includes clients. If a client feels that you are constantly just putting it on, you're faking everything, they don't want to see you again, because there's an ick that happens inside our heads. We just go, I don't trust this person. So the pivot then is we go out of the performance mode with the mask on, and then we take the mask on and go into this service mode. And it's the biggest shift you can make. Even for a speaker, a speaker can go, well, instead of, oh, do I look good? Do people like me? You just go, well, how can I help these people right now with the knowledge I have? It's a very different mindset, and it's a massive shift that isn't necessarily that hard. What it is instead of walking into something and going, here is my script, here is my keynote, here is my PowerPoint presentation, here is my sales deck, here is my corporate announcement, whatever it is you're going to be presenting or going in front of people with, it's all the performance. What you would probably do to get on better with people and to get more results out of it is throw away all of that stuff, all that performance, and just go, how can I help these people who are in this room right now today? I remember going to an event during an October business month, which is something we do in the Northern Territory. It's like a small business month in, say, Queensland or in New South Wales, or a small business week or something like you have in Adelaide in South Australia. And this one speaker, a professional speaker, who's not really done much apart from be a professional speaker, who happens to have focused on retail transformation, has never done any retail transformation, but has focused in on that, decided to do this retail transformation thing in a town called Alice Springs. It doesn't have a lot of retail stores as it is, and those that do are struggling really badly. And so she brought in all these Melbourne examples and Sydney examples and London examples and New York examples to a bunch of people in Alice Springs. That is performance mode. That is definitely not service mode. In performance mode, how can I look impressive? Oh, Sydney, Melbourne, Paris, London, New York. Service mode is Wagga Wagga. It is, Kenilworth. It is Townsville. It is Alice Springs. It is Meriden. It's being present and relatable to the people who are in the room. Now, this may not be a speaking thing. You may not be doing a speaking thing. This could just simply be how you provide your services and how you market your services. The performance mode says, I've worked for these people and these people, these huge brands, but they're all like 10, 15 years ago. What are you doing now? Who are you working with now? Oh, cool. The kind of people I'm in this room with, or the kind of people who I've got access to, that makes it more relatable. But working for the global giants does not make you impressive. It just makes you, at some point you're working in a corporate machine and you're one of 20,000 people who are employed around the country. It doesn't impress anybody. The performance mode says, am I smart enough? Do they like me? Am I coming across really cleverly? It's very internal. It's very self-obsessed, and it's absolutely exhausting. The service mode then is saying, how can I help this person right now? It's external, impact obsessed, and it energizes you because you actually get to share your expertise rather than faking a whole lot of false expertise. So the results of service mode is you can't be self-conscious when you're genuinely focused on others. You will not notice the things about yourself, whether you look fat, whether you look thin, whether you look gaunt, whether you look tired, when you're busy in a conversation with people who need the expertise that you can deliver. When you're having a conversation with other people and you're genuinely serving them in that conversation, you are not focused on what you look like at all for 1 minute. So I've got a bit of a connection framework here for you. It's 4 moves, any room, any moment, any situation where you drop your mask without burning down your experiences. And the first thing is we need to name the ghost. acknowledge that there's this fraudulent thing going on, this imposter syndrome, if you like, this little devil on our shoulders whispering in our ear. We don't let it drive us, but we also don't pretend that it's not in the car. We can't say, I cast thee into the wilderness, you beast of horror. It's nothing like that. What it is going, well, this thing's here. It's an evolutionary construct that's come about as a survival mechanism. It's there, it's doing its thing. That's fine. But yeah, I know you're there. Okay, I know you're there. I'm not going to pretend you're not there because that's just going to make you stronger. Then we drop the script. And this terrifies some people because they think, well, how will I know what to say? And this is where you trade that perfect pitch deck, that perfect presentation, that perfect PowerPoint presentation. It's like peas in there for a conversation. Rehearsed things rarely resonate. And I remember that one professional speaker who sticks in my mind so much that I saw her twice and she had the exact same things to say in exactly the same order, exactly the same slide deck, a year apart. And it landed very flat the first time and landed even flatter the second time because it did not match the people who were in the room with her. She did no research at all. She just turns up, gets paid a fortune, and then swans off back to her lovely, hotel room and then disappears. So trade that perfect pitch for conversation. It may mean that you take a little longer to rip out the slide deck or the PowerPoint presentation or the PDF. It may be that you get to a conference and you go, you know what, I'm not even going to bring out the slide deck. I often mention one of the best presentations by one of the worst presenters, who is, again, in an October business month in 2020. And she was a terrible presenter, absolutely horrific. Just read the entire thing from a script. But each of those PowerPoint presentations, the slides had one image on them, a single evocative image. That could be a way you do it. If you're not ready to completely drop the script, perhaps bring the script close to your chest and then display something that people don't have to lean on. It just illustrates what you're talking about. Leading with curiosity, I think, is one of the greatest strengths I've ever developed because it's all about asking questions of other people and wanting to hear the answer, not so that you can go, yes, and here's my answer. It's not like listening until they shut up. What it is you are asking a question so you get answers so you can then contextualize your knowledge into their world. Again, service first, not worried about whether you look good. You're going, I can't really serve this person appropriately until I know a little bit more about what they're doing. So a lot of that time is that before I go into a Zoom call with a new client or a Teams call with a new client, I spend a little time before the call researching what they're about, where they're from, LinkedIn profile, what city are they in, what town are they in, what can I see of their education. And then early in the conversation when we start, I'll ask them, I'll know something about where they are. So for instance, if they were in Alice Springs, the first thing I'll mention is, woof, a bit rainy in your part of the world at the moment, isn't it? That immediately gives them a dopamine hit and gets them feeling connected to you. It's the smallest thing talking about the weather, but it's such an effective way to bring yourself into their world so they feel like you give a damn. Wait, you know about that? I had a conversation here with someone from India today, and they were shocked I knew so much about India, but I knew that I was meeting with this person. So up front, I went, okay, who are they? I researched the surname because in India, a lot of what you can do is surnames to selected areas of India. So I looked at all that, looked at the name, put it down to Punjab and thought, okay, Punjab, what do I know about Punjab? Punjabi MC. I know that the city of Chandigarh. I know it's very close to other places like Haryana and very close to Himachal Pradesh. So can I lead in with some familiarity there to say, like, I understand what that is and use, the actual name that they use for the turban. No one there calls it a turban. We do. But know the names for those things where you can show some familiarity and care. If you don't have a natural curiosity about your client, I would go so far as you have no way of helping. Like all you care about is basically going, oh, I've got this prescriptive method. So here's my prescriptive method. Go do that and run a long deer and pay your invoice. When you lead with curiosity, you find out all the things that are within your knowledge that you can offer to them that are maybe outside of your prescription, outside of the prescriptive thing that you want to do. I would say then that radical honesty is important, probably for the one reason is that admitting that you don't know something builds much more trust in people than faking an answer ever could, because there's going to be one person in a room who does know the answer to that, or the person who's asking the question is looking for additional insights on the topic you're talking about that you may not have. They're saying, like, in that particular context, I don't have any experience, but I'd love to have a chat with you afterwards. I'd like to hear what your experiences are. And that then says, okay, firstly, I have limitations. Secondly, I'm confident in my limitation. Thirdly, I'm curious. Can we meet up later to have a chat about this? I'd like to know more. Which again gets the oxytocin flowing, gets the dopamine hitting off in a healthy way, not in the social media clicking on a phone thing, but in a healthy way. So there's so much going on you don't realize is going on with our brain chemistry to start with. So step one, we need to, that's naming the ghost. That's that fraud feeling. It has no power once you actually see it. To yourself, to the room, naming this thing strips us of its grip. I also call it the calling out the elephant in the room. So that could not just be, the fraudulent things going on in your head going, oh, you're a fraud, you're a fraud, you're an imposter. It could just be the fact that the room is really cold that day. And so you'll call it out and say, I really should have brought my cardigan. Who else is really cold in here today? So it's actually calling out, something that you might be on that stage with a very short spaghetti strap kind of thing you're wearing, and not realizing that everybody else is cold as well means you're not addressing that elephant in the room. You're not then having something to relate with. This could be a public speaking seminar as much as it could be a confidence seminar. They're very, very closely related. Secondly, drop your script, because authenticity is way, way more powerful and persuasive than a polished presentation. The perfect pitch is an absolute performance and people see through it. Conversations are messy, they're unscripted, and they're so much more interesting. And your curiosity goes off the charts. Their curiosity goes off the charts, and things can go way off track. As long as you know how to start and know how to finish these presentations, you'll be fine. And step three, that curiosity, I went into that with great detail, so I won't bore you with that one. But the step for the radical honesty is this idea that vulnerability is a leadership strategy. And I think people like Brene Brown have spoken about this at very strong lengths. I don't know, let's find out together is so much more powerful than you making up an answer to something or an excuse for it. So let go of the performance. The ego is all about protection. It's about the win. It's about coming away looking awesome. But confidence comes about when you're okay with being fully seen, with both your uncertainty, with your limitations, but also with your strengths intact. Letting go of the ego isn't a weakness. It's actually a shortcut to getting those little dopamine hits and that connection that comes through oxytocin flowing through our bloodstreams and connecting us to one another. Ego is very much about protection. That's why we have to put the mask on every day, right? And we get very defensive. We deflect blame. We put on a big performance. That's all ego trying to keep that mask firmly on our faces. And it takes so much energy. It really does. But confidence is okay with being seen for who you are. It's calling out the elephant in the room. When I was a lot heavier, I'm still, got a big belly, but, when I was a lot heavier, I used to call out my elephant in the room, which was like, wow, they could have made those stairs far less hard to get up to for a big guy, couldn't they? And then what you're doing is you're basically drawing attention to something which has already had its attention drawn to, and you're calling out, getting it out of the way, the icebreaker, and people can then get on with learning without sitting there being obsessed about your size, what you look for, your accent, any of those things. You come on and call it out. It is a fantastic way of you being able to connect with people. The shortcut to real authority is to stop protecting these things, start connecting with people, letting it go, because no amount of polish can gain that kind of trust and connection you're looking for unless you can step out of that into a mode of curiosity, asking questions, getting greater context into that client and that people who are in the room. Because the mask actually doesn't exist. Everyone can see through it. They can see the real you. They can see your insecurities, every little micro movement you make, every way the eyes sort of wander all over the room, every little physical discomfort of scratching and flicking your hair. Everyone can see it. The only person who's fooled by that performance is you. So stop managing your life in a way that's like a stage manager at a theater. It doesn't work. Nobody is convinced by it. And you are just fooling yourself and making yourself look like a fool over the long period of time. And it costs you so much energy, so much energy. But you can start making the impact. Remember, curiosity, flipping things around from not being about how you feel and being all about how you can serve them, the client, the room full of people, the potential customer, your partner. Hey, you can bring this stuff into your everyday life too. There's a whole room of people out there waiting. They could be at home, they could be in a conference center, they could be on a video on a Teams call. So show up, drop that mask, and make the impact that only you can make. So what we do, we name it first, acknowledge that we feel fraudulent. Then we shift it by going into service mode and out of performance mode. And then we own it. Be the person who we are, not the persona, not the mask, not the title. Be the person we are, because that's ultimately what gets us connected with everyone else. Now, if you'd like to continue this journey, I'll put together a very cool online guide. You can get through that URL just the bottom in red there, or you can go through the QR code. Either which way you go, it's going to get you into this great little interactive, clicky, tappy thing where you can answer questions, test yourself out, and relive this journey we've just been through. It's actually going to be a lot more interesting than what the PowerPoint presentation is I've done here. So please give it a go. Learn at clickstarter.com.au 2026 self-acceptance. Easier way to go through there.